When Alan Kaplan, our CEO, joined us in 2015, he made it a point to meet regularly with our Dean of the Medical School, Dr. Bob Golden. And because philanthropy plays a big role in everything at UW, they invited philanthropy leadership to participate in those meetings. And, you know, to be in that room and to listen to their vision and everything that's going on within the med school, within the entire medical enterprise, it's really, really fascinating. And, you know, we got to speaking probably in 2017, 2018, and felt it very prudent to take everything that they were talking about, their vision, and build a campaign around it. And so starting in 2019, we started a campaign in support of the entire UW Health enterprise. And so, you know, this is basically championing patient care, research, and education, things that we've been doing since the very beginning, and adding health equity, and then engaging our community and all of our partners for the benefit of advancing humankind. And so the objective, it's a bold one, is to raise $500 million, $500 million over the course of 7 years, from 2019 when we started counting softly through the end of 2025, and inspiring 100,000 donors to participate. Next slide, please. So the campaign pillars: patient care, research, education, health equity. Our primary areas of support: cancer. You know, how many people in this room have been affected by cancer? Probably just about all of us in one shape or fashion. Kids, pediatrics, women's health, Alzheimer, transplant, and other opportunities that arise during the course of the campaign. And the global needs, the fundraising initiatives, you may have heard about the East Park Medical Center, which we just did a groundbreaking on in May. This is a specialty clinic specifically for all things cancer and women's complex health, patient assistance, research and innovation, scholarships for our medical students, chairs and professorships in support of our faculty, and then health disparities. Next slide, please. So how are we doing? You know, on a calendar basis, June 30th of this year marked the halfway point of our campaign. And so happy to say that as of August 30th, we've raised $290 million towards that $500 million goal, and 57,000 unique visitors. And here, speaking about pediatrics in particular today, we've got a kids goal, pediatrics goal of between 80 to 90 million. And to date, we've raised 46 of that 80 to 90 from 8,500 unique donors. Next slide, please. So, you know, we opened up American Family Children's Hospital in August of 2007. And every year we take care of about 3,000 kids on an inpatient basis and tens of thousands more on an outpatient basis. You know, when we designed that hospital, we did so many focus groups, many of those with patient families, and asking them the question: if you could design and build your own children's hospital, what would it look like? What would it feel like? Et cetera, et cetera. And thanks to those focus groups, we got it right the first time. So, you know, we just celebrated our 15th year, and you know, we are the go-to place for the sickest kids in this region and beyond. Next slide, please. So, you know, taking a closer look at the Children's Hospital, we have 111 beds, which is almost double the number of beds that we opened with in 2007. You know, we started as a 6th-floor facility. Now we're an 8th-floor facility, which is as high as we'll ever go. At some point, we'll have 135 beds. You know, we're slowly getting towards that. We've got 9 operating rooms. We are a level 1 pediatric trauma center, level 4 neonatal intensive care unit, level 4 being the highest level of care for a neonatal intensive care unit. So we are taking care of the sickest babies right out of the womb. at that neonatal intensive care unit. Pediatric intensive care unit, this is where we're taking care of the sickest kids in the hospital. You know, basically from infancy to the age of 18, we've got 21 beds there. A verified pediatric burn center, ambulatory surgery center where kids can go be out, have their operations, and depending on the circumstances, come and go that same day. We've got a hybrid cath lab. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. Then an epilepsy monitoring unit, and neurosurgical and intervention services, and then one of the finest pediatric sedation programs in the country. We actually use nitrous oxide, which is laughing gas, and we have 21 flavors from the kids to choose from. So whether they want strawberry or bubble gum, you know, we make it a lot of fun for them. Next slide, please.
I know.
You know, the special support for our patient families. We've got child life services 24/7. I'll go into that a little bit more in the presentation. You may know that we have a school within the Children's Hospital, actually 2 schoolrooms, one on the 5th floor, that's for the general population, and then one specifically on the cancer floor for the kids that, many of the kids that are being treated on that cancer floor, they're neutropenic, meaning they have no or a very low immune system. So for that reason, they're not able to leave the floor until their white blood cell counts get to a particular level. So we've got a floor, a school just for those kids. And we've got 3 metropolitan school teachers that are in attendance each day that the Madison schools are in session. We have a positive image center to help kids ease their anxiety, especially after surgery or medical situations which have altered their appearance. We've got pet therapy, we've got music therapy, you know, all sorts of therapies to help the kids ease their anxiety and stress. And then we've got other services that are available, safety center, chapel, lactation rooms, lounges, playrooms, etc., for the benefit of our patients and their families. Next slide, please. So, you know, since we opened in 2007, this may come to surprise you as well, we've treated kids from 49 out of 50 states, which really just speaks to the vertical nature of some of our specialties. So the only state from which we have not treated a patient to date is Vermont. And so, surprisingly enough, so, you know,
You can barely see that on the map.
right, exactly. And so, you know, a little community hospital in Madison, Wisconsin, that's the last thing we are. We are literally treating patients from all over the country and many international cases as well. Next slide, please. You know, we offer a kaleidoscope of care. So 262 physicians and surgeons, pediatric specialists presiding over 41 specialties. So from asthma to allergies to cancer to cardiology to diabetes, et cetera, we offer the entire spectrum of care with 22 primary care clinics in our ring counties, and then another 70 regionally, all the way from all points in Wisconsin down to northern Illinois. Next slide, please. We've got 4 distinctions, programs of distinction. The first one I'll talk about being cancer. So we established our Division of Pediatric Hematology in 1969. We have 10 physicians within the division. 7 of those physicians are researchers that have their own labs. And so, you know, we are a teaching hospital, we are a research hospital. And so, you know, we've been front and center on the front line of creating treatments and cures for our cancer patients. You know, back in the 1960s, 1970s, the survival rate for pediatric cancer kids was roughly anywhere between the mid-teens to low 20%. And I'm happy to report today that with all the advances in research and patient care, that number is now hitting almost 90%. So just absolutely incredible. This again is all thanks to great advances in research, which are driven in large part by philanthropy. Next slide, please. 15 years ago, we were referring complex heart patients to Milwaukee, which is not an ideal situation. Now we have one of the top pediatric heart programs in the country. We've got two pediatric cardiovascular surgeons that perform about 300 surgeries a year. Some of these patients, their hearts are about the size of your thumbnail. And we have this hybrid cath lab that's absolutely incredible. It's where our physicians, thanks to 3D imaging that work alongside with interventional radiologists that help guide them during the surgery. We can lay that kid there. They stand there, and it's like a big octopus with the imaging going 360 to get every imaginable angle on the child. And so we were the first children's hospital in the world to get this particular piece of machinery from Siemens, which was about a $5 million piece of machinery. So, truly state of the art at the Children's Hospital. Next slide, please. And then certainly transplant. And George, you can speak to this and how important this is to the well-being of our children. So whether it's kidney, liver, lung, pancreas, we have a state-of-the-art transplant program and improving and saving the lives of our children patients. Next slide, please. And then certainly neurology, from headaches to neuromuscular and neuropsychological conditions such as epilepsy. We've got a great team. We are one of two level 4 epilepsy centers in the state of Wisconsin. Again, level 4 being the highest level of care. Next slide, please. Philanthropic priorities within the Children's Hospital. We've got the greatest need, child life program, patient family support, and then certainly pediatric research. And let me take a little deeper dive into each one of those. Next slide, please. So, many of the gifts that come into the Children's Hospital are through the Greatest Need Fund. And this is very important because this is presided over by our VP of the Children's Hospital. It helps us be very nimble and target dollars towards the highest priorities. Maybe it's a $50,000 or $100,000 piece of machinery. Maybe our hospital is full and we've got a lot of people that need financial aid or whatever the case may be. So we can be very nimble because of this Greatest Need Fund. Next slide, please. Child life program. So we've got about 20 child life specialists, and these are specially trained people that help our pediatric patients navigate through their hospital experience. They've got special training. As a matter of fact, Edgewood College has a child life degree, and it's early childhood education, and child psychology. And just very specialized people that help ease the anxiety of our patients as they navigate through their hospital experience. We are one of, I think, 8 hospitals in the country that offer child life services 24/7, 365. So for example, if there's a trauma case that comes in at 3 o'clock in the morning down to our emergency department, these patients will be comforted by a child life specialist. Patient family support. Keep in mind that the majority of the families that we are treating, they're young families. And the hospitalization of a child can really put them in a place of financial hardship. And so we actually provide meals 3 nights a week. Thanks to our volunteers and local restaurants that help us out with that. And then we have a financial grant program. Every patient family that enters American Family Children's Hospital, they meet with a social worker that assesses their situation. And especially for the longer hospitalized kids, the average length of stay for a patient is about 6 days, but there are some families that might be there for 4 months. You may have read a story in the paper within the last couple of weeks that there was a child that had multiple transplants and was there for 2 years and just went outside, to the real world for the first time at the age of 2 years and 3 months. And so, it's situations like these where, one parent may have to drop out of the workforce. Maybe there's only one parent to begin with. And thanks to financial grants, again, all driven by philanthropy, we are able to help with utility bills, rent, mortgage, transportation, etc., to help make their life, as rosy as possible during this very difficult time for them. Next slide, please. And then advancing pediatric research. This is at the heart of what we do. I've mentioned, pediatric cancer, what's happened with survival rates there. George and I were talking earlier about cystic fibrosis. It was 30 years ago where the life expectancy of a child that was afflicted with cystic fibrosis, their life expectancy was 18, 19 years old. Today, those kids are living into their late 30s, 40s, 50s. Again, all thanks to research, which is very much driven by philanthropy. We've got Dr. Ellen Wald, who's been with us since 2006, just retiring as our chair, and she's been just absolutely phenomenal in not only recruiting, but retaining just world-class faculty at American Family Children's Hospital. Next slide, please. Some of the things that we're working on as it relates to research right now is family-centered clinical interventions as it relates to medical complexity. I've already mentioned cancer. One of the things that we're focusing on there is immunotherapy, which is research focusing on how the immune system can cure cancer. Rather than introducing chemotherapy, radiation, surgery, etc., our physicians, along with physicians throughout the world, have found ways to put the immune system to work to help cure cancer. So again, this is helping to drive those survival rates. We've been involved in newborn screening for things such as cystic fibrosis and other diseases. Can you go back? Thank you. Saliva tests to help detect things like COVID, and other infections, etc., and all sorts of things that we're working on as it relates to research. Next slide, please. So, we've had our doors open at American Family Children's Hospital for 15 years, but we've got a history that goes back 100 years in this community with the opening of the Mary Cornelia Bradley Hospital back in 1920. And so, we have taken care of hundreds of thousands of children on an inpatient basis, and again, hundreds of thousands more on an outpatient basis. And philanthropy plays such a core part of everything that we are able to do to help advance research and patient care for these families. And so, it's people like George, it's people like the Taylors that have been with us since we opened up our doors in 2007 at American Family Children's Hospital that have helped make all of this possible. So, we've got a bold goal for the Children's Hospital of $80 to $90 million, and we're about halfway there. And if you ever have any questions, if you have any interest, or would even like to come by for a tour of American Family Children's Hospital, give me a call. It would be my pleasure to host you for a tour. So with that, I'll take any questions you may have. I'll answer them to the best of my ability.
Is the 90 million for the Children's Hospital a subset of the 500 million, or
Yes.
separate? Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
Any background on how many people you serve, and children you serve that are insured versus not insured? How many people need for insurance?
Yeah.
Wondered if you had any.
Yeah, so I don't have hard numbers on that, but I can tell you that as an organization, I think last year we did almost $40 million in charity care. That's enterprise-wide. And so, I think we are very fortunate in Wisconsin. We've got Badger Care and Badger Care Plus, which are wonderful insurance for the families here. But, we will never turn a family away for inability to pay. And so, we do quite a bit of that charity care as a hospital and as an organization enterprise-wide.
Let me give an example of that. I was shocked when, I never opened my daughter's mail, but she was in the hospital and I saw a mail from University Hospital come and the bill was $240,000. Now, Deirdre's never gonna have $240,000. And the foundation, the foundation picked up most of that. She's now on Medicare and since this was like 15 years ago, she's now on Medicare, so they cover her, but I'll tell you, you cannot believe the benefits of this institution to the people of this area. And it's we, the people that make it work.
Yeah. Amen, George. So, anybody else? All right. Well, thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Jim, for being here and for your presentation today. We make, as a Rotary, we make a contribution for all our speakers to the Rotary Internationals and Polio Plus Fund. We will likewise for you as well. Next week, speaker Adam.
Yeah.
So I no, I got it. No. Adam's not the speaker next week. Sarah Eskrich, Executive Director of the Democracy Fund, will be here speaking on the Final 5 voting in Wisconsin. So thank you for being here in person today and on Zoom. And remember, service above self. Have a great Rotary week.
One's also doing